Cool. We'll give it a minute to sync up on YouTube. Yeah, there we go. We are working. Victor's here.
Everyone.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So we were just saying it's funny. Like, what was the last time we did a live stream? And it was just like, for me, on YouTube at least, like we usually go straight to Discord because it's just so much easier. And I guess a lot of what we're doing is just for our community, and our community lives on Discord. So it's like we can just jump in and we can you can drag people to the stage and have a conversation with them. So it's it's quite easy. But well, welcome. Anthony, for everyone who hasn't seen Anthony's face, he has his own YouTube channel, which, what is the name of the YouTube channel?
I kind of forget. I think it's just under my profile. Like, I think back in the day when I first made it, it was I'm just going to put up some videos, and I never actually put anything formal against it.
Yeah, it's just Anthony Tan.
Yeah,
or
there you go.
Tan Antish is the actual username.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is Anthony is a very common name, and Tan is also a very common word. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Never going to get anything unique like this.
It's funny, actually, looking at the video that you posted, the latest one. I feel like it was right after about a month after you joined us, and I think it was as a result of some of the struggles that you're running into, because it's Python for nuke. It's single quotes versus double quotes. Yes, it's really a thing.
Oh yeah,
I remember us talking about that.
Yes,
good times.
That was fun.
Sam's here, Tiskar's here, Carly is here. Carly's going to be monitoring the chat and letting us know if there's anything. I mean, we'll be monitoring it as well. But yeah, good to see everyone's joined. So the reason for today is just to discuss the newest sort of iteration of our HDRI product, because we've been doing this for 3 years now, just over. And when we first started, there was a certain benchmark that we wanted to achieve, and that was 90-second intervals at 50K resolution. And the person behind sort of driving us to create the product was Nick Marshall, who's now a shareholder. At the time, he was saying, like, have you guys thought about creating HDRIs? And I thought, well, there's heaps of HDRIs out there. There's plenty of providers. There's Polyhaven, there's HDRI Haven. Actually, no, HDRI Haven is Polyhaven now. There's CG Skies, Dutch Skies. There's so many. But in discussing it with him, he mentioned that one of the issues or the two primary issues with the solutions that were out there was resolution and frequency. Because in the VFX world, you need a high resolution because of 4K shows, which we'll get into in a bit. But you also need just a hell of a lot of variety. You need to be able to, maybe 90 seconds was a little bit extreme, but that's what we do. We just shoot for the highest level we can. But having that granularity allows you so much creative control. So yeah, I mean, Anthony, have you before you joined us, had you explored HDRIs prior to that?
A little bit, but nothing quite at this scale. Like, you play around with these things, just you grab a camera and you try. It's like, ooh, that's really cool. But like the challenge of doing it just at that resolution that we've got, plus also the frequency, is not something that you kind of lightly do. It's like, okay, if I needed to do this, I'd need to guarantee camera was stable, I don't knock things over, all these other challenges that for a one-off it's fine, but at scale becomes miserable.
Yeah, that's so true. Like if we weren't aiming for 50K resolution, then if it was like 16 or 24K resolution, we could, and those are our cameras back there, but we could just take 3 of those cameras and strap them to a static rig that is easy enough to 3D print these days. Put a 10 mil lens on there, and just capture everything. And you could even then capture at a higher interval. You could capture it as quickly as 5 seconds. Really, it's just down to how many brackets it's taking at that point. But
it's all the little things, I guess, that add up as well. Like you find that I think I played with way back in Sydney. I just put a camera on a tripod, and it's just a small little field of view, relatively easy. But if I wanted to then get multiple cameras, are they aligned correctly? And then if I want to do high frequency, like every little bit adds to the complexity and adds to more things that can go wrong, basically.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way that most most panoramic stitching software for this purpose work is they work on control points. So funnily enough, if you're going from frame to frame or time, like over a time period, you kind of don't want to be aligning on control points, because you can, if there's any mismatch there, you can end up with shuffling of the imagery,
like jello or something.
Yeah, but also because the actual camera position might change slightly, but the clouds are constantly moving. And when clouds are moving, like unless you're capturing all 5, whatever angles at exactly the same time, you're going to get movement through the clouds. So if you're doing control point alignment, it's just going to completely wig out, and you'll get like boiling features that shift and shuffle around. So it's once you go from like an individual frame, even if it's like separated by say 2 minutes, which is where we started, we were doing 2-minute intervals. When it's separated by 2 minutes, like there's so much change in the sky in those 2 minutes that there's no real connection between the two that can be made in a sort of time lapse use case. So and then like obviously then like it's just completely incomprehensible to think about like actually doing manual matching across like even 100 frames. But
the other crazy thing as well, I think when I first started playing around with looking at the HDRIs that we have, was how sensitive, and I think anyone who works in film notices that how sensitive we are to motion and little things that are off. You look at 2 frames, like, oh, they look pretty good. Throw the third one, it's like, not bad. Play them back, it's like, no, I can actually see that one jump there. Because as soon as you see things in motion, then we just immediately lock onto things like, that's wrong. I can tell that's wrong. I don't know why, but it's clearly wrong.
And if you're then actually wanting to use it for time lapse like purpose and it is wrong, then it's like just fixing that stuff it can be a nightmare. I mean, it's still better than say like simulating it quite often. I mean, depending on the budget and the skill set in the company, like if you have someone who's really good with TerraGen, then sure, that's a viable route. So I guess maybe we can focus in on like why 50K resolution, because I think everything hinges off that. If you're not interested in, I mean, 36K is probably where it actually starts to require like moving cameras rather than static cameras. So if you've kind of got to go into this conversation with the understanding of like why it's important to have 50K. So for anyone who doesn't have a VFX understanding, or even those who do, if you're working on a production that's a 4K delivery, so it's a 4K show, and you have a 35mm lens, which is a pretty like relatively, I can't remember what the field of view of that is, but it's a relatively tight like field of view, but it's one of the most common. 35 and 50mm lenses are the most common in cinema. So if you have a 35 or a 50mm lens, the field of view of the whole 50K sphere is only a small portion, but the show needs to see that at 4K, 4,000 pixels, like edge to edge.
Yep.
So what we did when we first did our calculations, we found that 50K is kind of the sweet spot, where if you're using a 50mm lens, I believe it's pretty close to 1-to-1 representation of the background to the 4K. Right? Don't quote me exactly on that, because I can't remember which side that falls on. It might be like you need 56K, or you might need only 45 or something.
But it's in that kind of region, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously there are circumstances in film where you have a 70mm lens or a 130mm lens, but quite often, obviously, those become tighter and tighter fields of view, but the resolution that they shoot is the same. It's always 4K.
Mm-hmm.
But quite often when you've got those sorts of shots, they're focused in on some kind of action piece or a character that's in sort of the mid or foreground, or there's some movement.
Yeah, so, it's like a like portraiture. You want to pick out something very specific. So the rest of it is informational, but it's like that thing, you should be looking at that.
Yeah, much like the background behind you, while that's blurred artificially, not using a lens, but because it's blurred, we've focused in on you. The background doesn't need to be its full resolution, it's just getting blurred out. Same with movement. If there's movement in the camera,
so like a tracking shot kind of thing.
Yeah, tracking shot. Then any background stuff is any motion blur that applies to it is exaggerated. The tighter the field of view becomes. So yeah, ultimately, I guess that's why we chose 50K. That's our target. And so now from there we have to then say, okay, how do we achieve 120-second intervals, 90-second intervals, and now 30-second intervals?
Yeah, that's still crazy.
Yeah. So so I guess jumping into that, the reason we started to develop it and the reason why Anthony came on board was because we had been receiving more and more requests of 30-second intervals, both from the visual effects world and the games industry. I think what's interesting is in the games industry, it's like resolution isn't as important. Like they don't need 50K, right? But like the time-based component is really important, because they want to play something back at a real-time environment kind of way. Or not really real time. Like no one wants to actually play a game where it takes 24 hours to go through a day to night cycle.
I'm sure there are guys like that out there.
Yeah, well, Flight Sim. Yeah, Flight Sim would be probably
pretty much. I'm thinking of all the simulation genre where those are all fundamentally like they're real time kind of experiences. So now I'm just picturing Farming Simulator with a really nice sunset, but I don't play farming simulators, but it would be kind of neat.
It would be. So yeah, we I guess embarked on this challenge of how do we go from 90-second intervals, which is what everything prior to sequence 68, I think,
69,
maybe 69. Everything prior to that is shot at 90 seconds or 120 seconds for the really old stuff. And then we were like, okay, well, how do we capture at 30-second intervals? And that's why we had to completely go back to the drawing board with the physical setup of the rig. And ultimately, we now actually capture at just under 21 seconds. But of course, because there's interfacing that we have to do with the cameras between say sunrise and sunset, or if there's any changes like battery changes, storage device changes, you need a few seconds here and there. So we had to actually achieve around 21 seconds to be able to then have the 8 or 9 seconds to go and make any changes at whatever period of the day.
Even then, like 8 or 9 seconds is not a lot of time to get all those changes done. Like taking off filters or changing camera programs, that's tight.
It's like a pit stop. It's like an F1 pit stop. We're it's really quite sketchy. We're up on the top of a mountain, but what's not really clear is that right next to where the camera is set up is a complete vertical cliff for about 120 meters. You can actually see it if you. I'll see if I can get a photo. Yeah, I'll share. I'll just open
The
this
first
up.
time I saw the rig and the conditions, like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I think everyone who's played with cameras has had that moment where it's like you almost feel like you're about to drop the lens clap. I've done that before. Or you're just changing a lens. It's like, if I drop this, I'm going to be a very unhappy person.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing now with a tripod and a full rig. It's like, if I bump this in a way, no, don't even go there.
It's so there has actually been some sketchy moments while we're up there. Like I have bumped the rig itself, but not in a catastrophic way like that. The time that really got sketchy was actually when it was a really windy day, and I was and I was just standing there, and I jumped onto our Slack channel, and I was just sharing like, oh my god, it's super windy today, and I looked up, and the camera gear was like this, it was like 45-degree angle coming towards me, and I just teleported. I teleported like a 2-meter distance, and I managed to actually catch the camera as like and as I caught it, my hands hit the rocks. Like it was I mean it was just ridiculous. I mean, that was also prior to the time when we started to use rock bags to like weigh it down, because obviously like that scared the actually crap out of me. So all right, let me share a quick do a quick screen share of let's see. Here is this is it, and this up the top here is where the camera sits, and we sit just on the far side of this rock, where there's a little bit of a patch to sit at, but all of this is a complete vertical cliff. You can see, that's it there as well. It's straight down for 120 meters. So it's not the kind of place that you want to be making mistakes. That's for sure. So when it comes to, those 8 seconds, we really do, like, I get up on top of the rock, I'm knelt down, I've got my hands sort of ready in the position I need to jump up there and do whatever changes are necessary. And as you've discovered, we often actually end up with, things always go wrong on shoot, and then coming back to the office, and having to process those files. And I mean, this is why we hired you, right?
Oh, it's such an interesting thing, because I think from like coming from post-production in the, like, let's say in comp, you sort of just go, all right, here are my plates, here's my work. And then you think of 1 degree of scale as, I have a long shot, I'm going to spend ages working on this, the render is going to take forever. All right, that's one challenge. But until I started working in, I guess, the ingest side, and more like with the MattePaint stuff as well, it's like you never really understand how many things go weird on set and how many things happen on a shoot, that like you can't just, let's say you're 3 hours into it, you can't just say pause, let's just do it over again. It's like, no, we've just got to record the information, we don't know what happened, something happened, mark down the time, and we just got to keep going and going and going. So that's physical challenges, like things might get bumped. But then there's also like little things that, as a technical person, I assumed like, oh, time is time. But what happens if the 2 cameras, let's say I'm trying to figure out these 2 shots occurred at the same point in time, the cameras might have slightly different clocks, or maybe there's a tiny glitch with the firmware where it just rounds the seconds, like it doesn't have precise sub-second time. we're shooting at was it 21 seconds for the what's that? So it's 70 exposures all up, isn't it? It's 5. Yeah. So if you
5
imagine
positions, 7 exposures.
Yeah, 5 positions, 7 exposures, 2 cameras over 21 seconds. 1 second resolution isn't enough. It has to be fractions of a second. So if there's any problems with the firmware, if there's any rounding, you won't know about it on the day. And it's only when we get everything back to the office and you get all of it and crush it all into a database and you actually look and go, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, that's one of the really interesting challenges, actually.
Well, on top of that, I might not have mentioned to you, but sometimes like we have a splitter cable that triggers both cameras, right? But it's supposed to trigger them at the same time. You would imagine the electronic signal is going through the same length of wire, but randomly throughout the day, we'll hear the cameras will fire at the same time, and then we'll hear them firing sort of in cadence, right? Where one is slightly before the other. So, you know, you add that into the variable mix, and there's no way of telling, from a 1 second granularity.
It's it's absolute. I was going to say madness. No, it is honestly, it is absolute madness when you look at the scale of data that's coming out, and also all the little things that like with the timing, for example, if you're doing things at say 90-second resolution, you can go, okay, this is half a second off, but it's close enough. They're fairly close together. 21 seconds, like this is a 1/10 of a second off. Maybe we missed a frame here. Maybe this belongs across here. Don't know. We've had to develop a whole bunch of internal procedures to try to reconcile that. So it's almost like its own little mini shoot pipeline where you get raw material, crunch it into a database, because again, going back to the scale, I think our first versions of this, when it wasn't sunrise to sunset, they're sort of manageable. You can look at them. A single person can probably look at them in terms of individual frames and make guesses and patch holes.
Brute force it.
Yeah, but how many frames is there all up now? It's like,
so we capture just shy of 2,000 frames a day.
Okay.
Like obviously as we go towards winter, we're looking at shorter days, and I think the latest one we captured was about 1,800 frames as the days get shorter. But
so I'm just popping at the calculator. So if anyone hasn't done the maths in their head, which I haven't, I've got a calculator. 70 exposures, so that's the 2 cameras and all the brackets. 1,800, compact them into 1,800 frames. That is 126,000 individual images. So yeah, that's
they're all 100 megapixels as well. They're 100 megapixel photos. So it's just like looking at the images is just not an option. It's infeasible. It would take us months to work it out. So like that's the problem that you were given really to solve. And so yeah, I mean the solution that we have now is pretty damn good. And I think what's really impressive about it is that we can go from shoot to draft output in 2 days. That obviously doesn't have all of the vignette fixes and the linearization curves and denoising, grading, proper alignment, etc. But that is like from just stripping out what we need to pumping it through a baseline like template stitch. Pretty cool that we can go from shoot to draft in 2 days, because we, like in working with our customers and with our clients, like we need to get approvals for some of these shoots, especially the full day ones where we're out there for a specific production. We need approval from them before we start processing it, and that processing takes about 2 weeks on the farm. Give or take. That's probably a little bit long these days, but so we
also
want to get
build
approval
a farm for this.
Yeah. Added like 4 machines, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that approval process or that speed of getting the draft out allows us to get the content approved, so the actual like cloud content, and then we can eradicate the rest of the issues. If there were any issues throughout the day of the shoot, we can fine tune them, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was one really good thing. But when I first looked at it, I think I treated it as just a volume problem. It's like, all right, cool, we'll just figure out how to do this at scale. But then you mentioned the desire to be able to just run that draft output as quickly as possible. So that actually pushed forward a little bit of the processing. It's sort of like, okay, so we can do this. And that's actually been, I think some of the nice things that fell out of that were like coming from the comp headspace, I just want everything to be fast. I don't want to wait for anything. And yeah, having that draft output has allowed us to actually just assess the material really quickly. And that means if it gets approved, great. But also we can spot the issues without having to invest a huge amount of time doing really detailed work, only then going, we should have probably fixed that. Oh God, we have to do it again.
And it's funny, like when you mentioned just being able to review things quickly, 100 megapixel cameras create 100 megabyte photos.
Yeah.
They do get compressed, and especially the darker ones get better compression, but the total file like capacity that we need on the mountain is 8 terabytes. So when we fill like 7.4 terabytes of those of that storage. So, and then when we bring it back, like, I mean, just like reading 8 terabytes takes time, right? So that's I guess what you're alluding to is having that draft review allows us to kind of not have to interact with that big data set manually. We can do it from just metadata and then the draft visual reviews. But yeah, for anyone who's wondering, like from a sort of stats perspective, 130,000 photos takes 8 terabytes of raw files, just shy of that. That then gets processed into TIFF files. For, you know, we apply the linearization and color correction, noise and vignette curves, etc. The total file like storage capacity that we need to just process a full like sunrise to sunset 2000 frame sequence is just shy of 100 terabytes. Like it's like 96.5 terabytes or something. Not including the final stitched files, like which then ultimately ended up, I think, sequence 70, which we'll show in a moment. Sequence 70 was our first like full day. Was it 70? Yeah. And that I think was 28 terabytes of total files to be uploaded to the cloud for, you know, customer delivery. So that includes, you know, all of the different resolutions, the 50K, the 36, the 24s, etc. It's like, I mean, even that we've had to make some optimizations with like cropping off the bottom of the HDRI, using like a kind of form of MIP mapping to like reduce or help the compression of the bottom portion, which we don't care about. And we managed to get the total file size down from about 13-14 gigabytes per 50K frame to 8.5 gigabytes. So, you know, that's a huge saving.
Even on one file, it's a huge saving. And when you multiply it by the number of frames, it's quite a lot.
Yeah. Sam said, I think you should add one more camera to the mix. Which is, I mean, it's funny at a certain point, like I can't see how we would like add a third camera without going to a static arrangement. But
Yeah.
it has come up, like we've tossed up the idea of just buying another 4 cameras and just being done with it, being done with the movement aspect, which is I mean, the thing that gives me concern is just how much more data we potentially could capture, because we could go from 30-second intervals down to like 5 or 10.
I'm just laughing, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was only half laughing at the scale of that, because I think how long is a current shoot? It's 12 hours and a bit.
16.
Oh, sorry, 16. So
16.
looking at I think one of the really neat things was when pulling out one of the images, one of the first ones I got was really late at night, and you look up and there's this beautiful sky, like all the stars and everything. It's like, I wonder how this would look if you did it for like a full 24 hours. So
there may or may not be plans to do that at some point. I mean, the thing is, we're up at 2:30 in the morning, right? We go up there to shoot. We start to shoot at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't finish till 8 p.m. So it's kind of like we're already up there, and like by the time you get through 16 hours, you're so delirious, like and like time takes on a different meaning. So multiple times, Andy and I, who we're both up there for these shoots, because you need 2 people when it's that long.
Yeah.
We sort of sit there at like 8 p.m. when we're packing down. We're like, you know what, we could just continue through to tomorrow. Like, especially when things aren't going wrong. Like if everything, and the more we've done this, the more we've really we've got to the point where we basically interface with the camera like 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So, and we should be able to get that down to like 2, which would be just sunset and sunrise. Like that's always going to be a necessity. But yeah, next finally joined. He says do 5-second intervals. Of course he would egg us on.
Yeah, if you want 5-second intervals, are you going to be part of the second shift so that you can like bring in the pizza and then take over from the camera?
Yeah. He can also foot the bill for the hard drives. Because actually, that's another good point, is like the backbone of our network here is 100 gigabit. And of course, as part of that, everything that we run on is able to read at around about 900, 800 megabytes a second, like as a minimum. And then we have our caching drives to like, which read at like 7,000 megabytes a second. So much of the 100 gigabit connectivity is going straight to those cache drives. And it's such a massive impact to the speed at which you can process. Like the difference is we can stitch a 50K frame inside of 2 minutes. Whereas with like when I first started, it was taking more like 45 minutes. Of course, that was 3 years ago. Like, but it was vastly a hardware issue. There are other things that we've optimized in the process, but the backbone of the hardware is just insane. And to be frank, like if someone had told me where this was going to go and didn't tell me like how much interest there would be from the public, I probably would have been like, no, we're not doing that, because it's
bad idea.
It's way, I'd be like, this is way too much effort.
The results are, like, I mean, looking at the results on the new sequence, I think the first time, even from the drafts, which are not high quality, they're from JPEGs, but it was like, oh man, this is really pretty.
Yeah, let me just pop up my screen and show let's do this. This is sequence 20. It's playing through already, but you can see this on our YouTube channel. So if anyone's interested in having a look, you can just go and find it. Although it is unlisted, so I will adjust that shortly so that it's not. But you can see here, like we had a couple of hiccups during this sequence. There are a couple of like jumps because we were still fine tuning some of the hardware setup. You could see one just then, actually. Just jumped through, but it is so incredibly smooth. And when you then add in motion vectors, which is the whole point we aimed for this resolution, this interval, is that at 30 seconds a frame, the interpolation can be made between two different frames of clouds. It's a little bit tricky up the top because you've got so much more movement as related to the camera's perspective, but most of the time, in a film or even in games, you're looking at this sort of bottom like 30-40% of the environment anyway, so you get a lot of good interpolative data through there.
Nick's asked me something.
What has he asked?
How do I stay sane? Pretty much.
How do you stay sane? Yeah, I don't know if you are sane.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair answer.
I'll
probably explain more after we finish the sequence show off. But short answer is that you kind of just have to get all of it. Like I think we've mentioned putting into a database. That was one of the first decisions we made, and that's paid off because then you can search through the database. It started off being like, I could just put this in a spreadsheet. You quickly hit the number of maximum rows in a Google Sheet very, very, very quickly with the amount of stuff we have. So it's been little things like that, and then just being able to build tooling around it. So it's like, here's a blob of data, I can just run a query against it, and then you just work out what works. You don't stay sane though. That's not an option.
Plenty of messages I have from you that just feel like garbled insanity while you were struggling with like fixing something.
Yes.
Right. Well, let's shift gears to show people what the update was that we did recently, because we've released a new UI update, because as you can imagine, 2,000 frames playing back in a browser, like in the way that we had before, for anyone who is familiar with what we had before, it was basically this scroller. In fact, what you're seeing here is effectively what we had before, but you can't cram 2,000 frames into this. There's not even 2,000 pixels in the width of this section here. So what we did was we released an update, which should load up here, which gives you this sort of thumbnail ticker strip at the bottom here. So this allows you to preview a 100 frame sort of subsection of the sequence. If you want to see the full sequence, we're going to be improving this. There'll be a button here to just play the video, but we'll be uploading and sharing the YouTube link here in the description, so you can actually see it, in its full playback there. If might be some people out there who are interested in purchasing the whole thing, but otherwise you can drag this around. You can see here what you're looking at here is a slice of the sky based around the position of the sun. So if I scroll through to say here, you can really see the elevation that you might be looking for, because if you're looking for a sunset, you'll be able to just hone in on exactly where that is. So down here we've got a scroller, so you can see just how wide this whole preview section is. And then if I click on a specific section, it reloads this top section here. If I then change the sort of scope of these two handles, then it will update this previewer here. Something that I think a lot of people haven't really realized as well is these little indicators across the top indicate whether the sun is behind a cloud or not. You can see that from the light intensity data as well. So if I click on this one here, it's saying light intensity is 0, which means that the sun is occluded and behind a cloud. And then light intensity of 83 means the sun is 83,000 times white. So we use the numbers are in thousands. So that's quite handy if you're scrolling through. You found a section you like, but you know that you need a frame where the sun is behind a cloud, you can find those frames in here. So yeah, we've also got your standard 360 view as well. That I think is always handy to just kind of get a better feeling for how the shapes of the clouds affect the view. I think that's about everything for that view. Below here, we've also consolidated the download options. So you've got your EXR and JPEG views, file types. And then under multi-frame, when you have, let's say 30 frames here selected, this will update to show you exactly what you're going to pay at the relevant resolution. So let's say I need 24K resolution EXR. By default, you get every third frame free when you're purchasing a contiguous block, like a time lapse. And then here you can see that this will cost a total of 14,000 credits. You're getting 7,200 credits off for grabbing a time lapse. When you click purchase frames, which I can do here, it'll take a moment to just make all the connections to these to register these as downloads. And then you can come back through. These should update to say that they're now free and you can download everything. There we go, purchased. And now you'll download each one individually. Now, just lastly on that, the reason we don't allow bulk downloading is because a lot of browsers will just limit multiple downloads anyway. But sometimes if you're downloading a 50K file, these are 8.5 gigabytes each. If you're downloading 50 of them, that's a fair amount of size. So you probably just need to go through like one by one. Yeah.
Actually, one thing that on the new slice thing, do you remember? I can't remember what it was, but when someone was getting films and they were actually just doing frame slices like that, and you could actually see the color palette occurring during a scene or how the DOP was choosing to, like this actually reminds me of that a lot because I can actually see the tone of the sky. It's like, it's kind of pretty.
Yeah, I remember that. I reckon Ian McNair would be the one to ask about to chase that down because he is all over that stuff, and I'm pretty sure he shared that with me back in the day. But yeah, it was really cool. You get this kind of interesting, gradual change.
You can kind of tell this is one scene, and then suddenly it changes. Here's another tone they want to go for. Here's another location.
Yeah, you can also see here in these splits here where we had issues with this day because it's not a gradual change. There's some jumps here, through here and here. Whereas if I go over to this section, by this point here, it was just all very smooth. We were just shooting at the same cadence every frame. So last thing I want to show on here is the way that we envisaged people to use the HDRI system, and that is that ideally you want to know two things about your search. You want to know what sun elevation approximately you want, and you want to know whether you want the sun in frame or not in frame. So if I go to let's say I'm looking for a romantic sunset, so I'll go to sun at 3.5 degrees, and then I'll say direct light, and now I can scroll through and I can find all of the different skies that have those parameters met. Now, keep in mind there might be other sequences. If I go to say 4.5, there could be more sequences that actually appear. So it is a little bit strict on its search, but you'll be able to find. I mean, at this stage we have 73. We've captured 73, but we've released 70 different sequences, minus the ones that got purchased outright early in our process. So I think we start at 3. But even as it is, there's a hell of a lot of options here, and then you can scroll through and find okay, this one's of interest, and then you can see all of the different frames either side, and maybe find a better frame like this one. which is 1184 is one of the most iconic shots that we've, and probably the most incredible sunset that I've ever seen. Like it was, this is what it was like just standing there at the top of that mountain. And it's also funny that this was the single only shoot that our COO came on, Ben's, and it's still to this day the best sunset we've ever had. So annoyed that he got that. So I think that's probably all I need to show on the UI, but I would like to invite anyone who is watching this, anyone who's on the live stream, sees this later, if you've got any feedback points on this, like, please let us know, because it's something that we've developed on feedback from customers, but there are still some things that we want to improve, and we just wanted to put it in front of people and see what they think.
I think you've got a question in the chat.
Will the cap and credits increase in case bulk purchases are wanting to be purchased by casual subscribers? No. It's the systems aren't connected. I would suggest that if you're looking at buying bulk on, say, a personal subscription, then you probably want to have a yearly plan so that you can build up the credits, the 6-month rollover of credits. But if you do have some kind of need for a sequence, you can always email our support. We're always happy to make arrangements for any specific use cases. It's weird because what you're effectively looking at here is like a video, right? But we're not selling it the product is not for video use. But because now that we're reaching into like 30-second intervals, it's almost like if you it's like if you went to Axiom Images is a provider of like stock footage. It's like this is kind of stock footage level, but we can't really sell the whole thing because it's kind of infeasible to just charge tens of thousands of dollars because it costs that much to capture. So you kind of want to grab a section of it for whatever you need, but sometimes like there's just some limitations in the current system.
Oh, totally. Yeah, the sun elevation feature. So I find it amusing you mentioned that, because when Conrad got me going through the process to actually calculate it all, it's like, how useful could this possibly be? And then you actually see it's like, oh, right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, like, because calculating the sun position is like, we wanted it to be an automated thing, but the problem is the sun's constantly going behind clouds.
Yeah, clouds.
And okay, when it goes behind clouds, we can just interpolate between like the next time we see it from the last time we saw it and blend between. Or if the cloud is thin enough, you can kind of track it manually. But it makes the process actually really difficult to like just get a smooth track across the day. It's something that we're obviously improving every time we do it. But the impact and like the usefulness of that, because we use that to also inject a whole bunch of metadata, like the time of day, the elevation, obviously, we detect the intensity of the sunlight. So we say, okay, how intense is it at this point? Is it to detect whether the sun's behind a cloud or not? And then we also have a mask for the sun that's included in the EXR information. So if you're a visual effects studio, you can actually build some tooling around that to say, like, build an internal plugin that links in and sort of extrapolates on that metadata to say allow your artists to patch the sun out just with a click of a button. or change the elevation.
I think you've kind of inadvertently answered Nick's question there in a way about the adding scripting to the tool set with MattePaint content. Like just the amount of metadata we're actually trying to put on just to give it more context and just other stuff that's useful. I think the sun, is it MP azimuth and elevation? I forget the key names.
Yeah, azimuth is the horizontal position, MP underscore elevation is the vertical.
Yeah. So there are all those things on the EXRs. So yeah, it's like, I think same way that playing around with the raw images, I was actually surprised to see how much data comes off the camera that was useful. It's like, oh, cool, let's mine through all this information.
Yeah, we've continued to add more as well. So I think that's the thing. We're constantly adding more and looking for more things that we can add on top of that. So and I think also to add to Nick's question, I will actually share my screen again, just a minute. So one of the most powerful, like kind of actually the first mind-blowing moment that I had working with our HDRIs was when I was working on the Netflix show, and I was doing a matte painting of here's the sort of the layered pre-comp sort of version. So I was working on this. This is a shot that is shot in Sydney, but needed to obviously look like it was in San Francisco. And they wanted a really moody, broody sky, like sunset sky. So I grabbed a frame. I grabbed like 3 frames from our HDRIs, and I don't know if I have them in here. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, I don't have them all. I don't have the actual sky options that I selected, but effectively what happened was the client came back, and this was the original sky that I had. And the client came back and said, look, it feels too stormy. And what I was able to do is, because we have the movement of the clouds through the scene, I was able to go back a couple of frames and get this sky. And then the two of them, these two skies, I blended together, and we ended up with that. And all that is a big airbrush with a little bit of a scattering through here. So, because the thing is that these are taken from the same day. So contextually, from lighting perspective, from color, from grading, from the sort of atmospherics of it, they're all exactly the same. It's just that the clouds have like moved through a slight bit, and you're able to then like just patch in a tiny little element of it. If I just turn off my so that's it there.
No.
It was and I was probably done inside of like 10 minutes, because I knew that I just wanted a frame from a few minutes earlier or later.
Must make it so much easier instead of having to search through. It's like, this has the right image, but is it like, can I use this because it's got a different feel to it? Just go back a few minutes, by the way.
Yes, and actually this was the original sky, because I realized I've also got a horizon line. So I added that, and we added that, and all of this is just the same HDRI sequence. You can see sequence 9, frame 1048, sequence 9, 1053, and 54. So these 2 frames are literally just one. They're a gap of probably 2 minutes, because back then we were doing 2-minute intervals. So that is that for me was this moment of like pure joy, because you're being creative from the ultimate sense of being creative. There wasn't any struggle with grading or like content mismatching. It was just like, here, this looks great. So I think that probably is the nail on the head for Nick's question, and he said that they use the exact same approach for The Last of Us, which
I see.
Which is
actually, I'll not specifically MattePaint related, but the other half of Nick's question as well, as everyone's curious. Like, one thing I'd probably say that's helped, especially it's most visible on our pipeline as well, is not trying to do everything in one super massive complex step. So that translates into scripting as well. So we have a lot of small discrete pieces that block together. It means that each piece can be debugged, can be fixed, and I can find the issues that I've introduced. It's like, oh, that's my fault, I'll fix that. But it's not one overly complex, massive thing that if it breaks here, you don't know, and you have to spend half a day figuring it out. And I think the same occurs with if you're a comper or if you're someone working on your own tool set. If you make one thing that you press the button and it works, it's great when it works. And when it doesn't, you're just hand in head and not happy about it. So even at that level, divide and conquer into small discrete pieces. I think it also helped when we process the images, because we have like a Newt comp that has discrete pieces. So even when I was coming in cold, it's like, this does one thing. If this thing isn't working, okay, I only have to focus on this one particular thing, which might be grading or sun tracking or cloud coverage kind of calculations.
Yeah, 100%. I when we first started, I mean, the scripting was far more simple 3 years ago, but yeah, I was trying to do everything in one script, and then once I broke it out into multiple scripts, it just and also multiple sections within the same script, which is what you were referring to. But then, you know, we obviously broke some other stuff out into separate things and did some pre-comping and that. Right. Well, any last thoughts?
I'm impressed we've been able to yammer away for like an hour almost.
Yeah. I expected it to be 30 minutes, but
Nick, stop asking questions. Like there's nothing to. So actually, that's probably another thing to point out. Like a lot of there's often this temptation. Honestly, temptation to play with new shiny technology and everything, but ultimately it's just about getting the job done. So we're using like VFX standard Python. I've tried to keep it as out of the box as possible, because like this is something from at least my pipelining kind of headspace that I might be able to use all the fancy whiz-bangery and understand how it's going together, but I don't know if anyone's heard of bus factor as a term we use. Like, but the idea is I don't want to be the only person who understands something. And part of that is writing tutorials. Part of that's also making sure that someone can just go, right, I need to get on this machine. I just need to click this button, and it's got to be as dumb as rocks, hopefully. So it's as much standard Python as I can get my hands on. We use SQLite as a database. Like there's a temptation to use something that's a little bit faster or might be architecturally more nicer, but at the end of the day, it's industry standard. It sits in a file. If we need to back it up, we copy the file somewhere. If something goes wrong with it, we restore the backup. There's no server rebuild. There's nothing fancy. It's literally a file.
Yeah, it's nice and simple. Just like and it serves a specific purpose. You know, we're not trying to develop some kind of new tech in the scripting area. Like the scripting is to process the new tech that we're coming in, you know, the new stuff. So
the scripting isn't the job, it's to do the job.
All right, well, we should cap it there. We're pretty much smack bang on an hour, so I think that's a good time to stop. Any questions that anyone has, we're always available on the Discord server. It's probably the best place to bug us. Any feedback that you have, you know, you can always reach out to us through our support channels on the website. And yeah, we're always happy to hear from people and their opinions. So thank you, Anthony.
Pleasure.
We'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right, thanks for everything.